Here's an idea. My wife was just telling me, she asked one of my students the other day, so how do you like school? And he says, it's just like being in prison. You're there for hours and hours. It's so funny. Speaking of school, got a request to finish up the Green Dolphin Street, and we're talking about the last line here. I'm going to do this in both keys, in the key of C and also in the key of E flat. So let's do the key of C first. And what I did was I wrote out a line because, you know, when I was studying jazz piano with a teacher for, you know, several years, at one point I was asked to write out my solo, write out a solo, not like, you know, play it, record it, and then write it out, but to actually, you know, write one out, you know, think about each note and try to come up with something good. And you know, then my teacher would shred it. And I don't mean he would play it and shred it. I mean he would like tear it to pieces and tell him, no, this is no good. So one thing you want when you're improvising is you want some variety in your lines. Now, some lines can just be kind of going up and down the scales. Other ones can be kind of hitting the arpeggios and the chord tones. And other ones can be, you know, like keeping within a very small range and moving around. And other ones can have lots of leaps. And even within one line, you need variety, like some scale tones. You don't need it, but I mean, you know, you want to have some scale tones and some leaps and some change of direction. So we're starting on D minor. I wrote it out, and you find that once you practice what you wrote out, you might make a few changes, make it a little better, but then it kind of, if you practice it, it gets under your fingers, and then you can just use little parts of it when you're soloing. So like, for instance, this first line. Now that's just all eighth notes with no phrasing, or, you know, it almost sounds like an exercise. But if you use little parts of it, you know. So I'm kind of, you know, it's under my fingers, but now I'm kind of playing around with it, and I can play around with it even more. So let's talk about it a little bit. We're on the D minor. Now you could just change it to D minor 6, really. So we're starting on the 2 chord. And then what we have is a 2-5-1 in A minor. So it's a 2-5-1 in A minor. And in my next example, I'm going to simplify it by leaving out the 2 chord here and just using the 5 chord. So one good way to get through this line, because there's so many chord changes, is leave out the B minor 7 flat 5. Just go right to E7 and then onto A minor, and then leave out the F sharp half diminished. Just do B7. All right, that way you don't have to quite think as much about how many, all the different scales that might be involved. You can do something a little simpler, or actually something a little more complex, since the chords are simpler, if you understand what I mean. So there I just really did the same exact line twice. I gave some variety to my line by changing direction, doing some scale stuff, and a little leap and change of direction. So I leap up to G and change direction, and then using the A minor arpeggio, and once again some scale, and then some. And by writing it out and practicing it, it's not like you're going to play this exact line when you solo, but you can, you've got some stuff under your fingers that you can play around with. Like, for instance, I could just take this line and kind of do it a little different. Play around with it. chop it up. So I just picked a few notes out of there, but my fingers kind of moved in the same general area. So, by writing out what you do, you can sometimes, say, oh, it could be a little better if I do this or do that, and, work on like variety, some scale kind of things, and then, some skips of thirds, and maybe some bigger skips, and then skip and then change direction, like da-da-da-da, up, and then change direction and come down, that kind of thing. Okay, I have an example in the key of E flat, so we're starting on our 2 chord, and I'm waiting a beat and a half, 1, 2, and here I simplified it and used the diminished scale, 1, 2, right here on the dominant chord. Right, the flat 5, that's in the diminished scale, so is the 5, and then always remember these 4 little notes. They're very, very handy. And then I just stopped. All right. Kind of very angular lines, but just hitting scale and chord tones. You could even think of that as an enclosure. Even this. I kind of like that line. Did I write that? Yeah, and by doing it a few times, it'll stick with you, and hopefully when you're soloing, you can draw on some of that previous practice. Okay, then you get to the 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, and both of these progressions, the minor 2, 5, 1, right? We were in F minor, and then we had a minor 2, 5, 1 to C, so half diminished, altered chord, with whatever you do there, and C minor. That's our first 2, 5, 1, and then another minor 2, 5, 1. Right? You can use, use a natural 2 there instead of that. So it's like the Locrian mode, but not quite. Just that one black key. If you want to use that scale, in this example we left out the 2 chord, so just went right to the 5 chord. But and then what am I doing? Right, the 4 notes, the flat 5 and the 5. So we have those minor 2, 5, 1s, and then we have the 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. And notice I use some tritone substitutions there. 3, 6, the 6 is a C, 2, 5 is a B flat. And notice how it comes out chromatically when you do this. So if I wanted to use a bunch of diminished scale, I could use some little diminished chords like that for C, and then F, and that diminished chord for B flat, and then I could play around with the diminished scale. All right. There's the notes, but I just kind of went like that. I don't know why, but. I could do something way better than that for sure. To get back to the beginning of the song. So 3, 6, 2, 5. And you could just do another 3, 6, 2, 5, or just a 2, 5, or whatever you want to do, or just a 5, or it's jazz. You can make up new kind of stuff to put in there too. kind of reminds me of a little something too that you can do that's pretty cool up in the A section. And I'll just do this in the key of C, but you know, you've got this, and this. So on the D7 and then maybe like the D flat 7, re-harmonizing a little bit here. You can do 2 5s like that, and you can make them much more modern sounding by doing something like this. And then back to C. See? So it's a little high for this idea. I mean, I might try it down here. Yeah, you do it like an A to D, and then A flat to D flat to C, all right? And that's legal kind of 2-5-1 stuff here. All right, if you're not familiar with that, you know, ask me in the comments and I'll explain it. That's a 2-5-1 in C. It's one of the weirder ones, but that's one thing that you can do. All right, so we're going to do A and D first, then this one, and then we'll end up on C. But we're going to modernize this a little bit. Yeah, we're going to like kind of make that an A11th chord. I don't even have the 3rd in there. And then for this one, I'm going to use that. It's not really an altered chord. It's got the regular 9 and the 13, the sharp 11. And, you know, it's an easy thing to find because just take the D chord, play an E chord instead, all right? So, and then do the same thing here. And then you get back to C. And, you know, you can have some fun improvising on that too. Oh. Come up with some kind of quirky little lines there. All right, got a little bit of stuff you could print out down there in the description. You know, if you're looking at the description, it says more, hit the more, then you see a couple links there. Just click on the link that says study sheet and it'll pop right up. You can print it out or just take a look at it. So the lines are written there for you. All right, thank you everyone.